Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to an all-new episode of your favorite podcast, The Bearded Biomed. I appreciate you joining me here today. Have a special guest with me, someone that just recently met a few months back, and he made such an impression, I had to have him on the show. So this gentleman is a biomed. However, he transitioned into a particular skill set that has prompted him to have a very fortuitous career. So want to dive into his background for sure and introduce you folks to Jason Klutz. Jason, I appreciate you being on today. I know we've kind of talked about it here and there, and like I said, we kicked it off so well in Nashville. I was like, got to get
Awesome.
this
Thanks for
guy on
having
to
me,
kind of pick
Chase.
his
I
brains some
really
more. So
was excited to meet you over there at the Uptime Health convention there with Dental Fix. And I'm excited as a biomed who kind of like went off the kind of straight off the path to dental. Now to see all the BMETs paying attention now a little bit more to what we have going on here. It's pretty exciting to be kind of in a position to share experience with all my brothers and sisters that are their fellow biomeds.
and if I remember correctly, you also come from a military background as well.
I spent my first 4 years in the Air Force as a KC-10 hydraulics mechanic, and I had some friends there in over at McGuire Air Force Base in New Jersey who were biomeds, and I loved working on airplanes, but keeping track of tools and some of the things that went with working outside on the flight line were, I don't know, they were areas that were kind of, I embraced the suck, to kind of be out there doing the wrench turning. But as soon as I learned that there was actually a whole career field of repairing equipment inside of a hospital, I was super excited to learn about it. And I actually was able to get a cross train from aircraft hydraulics over to biomedical equipment. And that took me to Shepherd Air Force Base, where I learned to be a BMET there in 2001 to 2002. And it was actually really interesting because the last day that my wife and I were in New Jersey was actually September 11th, 2001. We went to go say bye to some friends on that day, 100 miles away. The Twin Tower, that heartbreak was unfolding and nobody knew what was happening. And that was actually the last day that we were in New Jersey together. And from that day, we ended up going my wife went to Korea for a year, and then I went over to Shepherd Air Force Base for that 11-month tech school. And what an incredible experience to learn the DoD way of becoming a BMAT. It was pretty incredible.
Love the shop. I love, one of my favorite things to do is when I go into hospitals and talk to other biomeds, because every shop is different. It's unique. Everybody has different clientele. Even if you're not in the dental space, like just seeing something like an M11 autoclave behind you, like there's so many parallels between both sides. How did Bright Ideas start, and where is your journey kind of taking
For
you
sure.
after moving into this space?
Well, I've been a BMET since 2001. Then from my graduation in 2002, I went to Travis Air Force Base. I was in I was at there. I started in the surgical team. I went to imaging, and actually I was like doing the Merc trips for doing the imaging lead role. I ended up actually going to Korea for a year. I forgot to change my dream sheet after New Jersey, so I got a 1-year trip to Korea. So by the time my wife and I were married for 5 years, we each had done a year in Korea. I was at Osan and she was at Kunsan, 2 separate times. And then in about 2009, I got ended up getting a Palace Chase to go to the Air National Guard, and I continued on as a BMET. And so from there, I had to get a real job, and I ended up going to work for Genentech, which is a pharmaceutical manufacturer. And this isn't exactly what you were asking, but it's kind of my story of the twists and the turns of the career. But the Genentech was kind of the only place I could get hired at, which is really strange because I thought coming out of the imaging at David Grant, I thought, oh, you know what? I mean, my biggest problem is going to be decide whether to work for Philips, Hologic, or GE. And as it turns out, none of those opportunities actually existed. And so I ended up taking a job as an instrumentation technician at Genentech. And that's where my skill set kind of varied as I worked on instrumentation for pharmaceutical manufacturing equipment. And so there was kind of some extra experience I got there doing that. But then I was actually laid off from Genentech when Roche purchased them. I was kind of the last one hired and first one out. So that was about that journey was about it was about a year and a half. But from there, I actually ended up going and re-entering the biomed career field through UC Davis Medical Center. And this opportunity came up, and I actually went and I had like the weakest BMET interview ever, because when I went to go interview, I had been out of the BMET career field for about a year and a half. And during the interview, they asked me, if I worked on this or that or that or that. And it was kind of like they asked me if I'd worked on any electrosurgical units. And the best I could come up with was to this guy named Ted Cohen. He's a legend over at UC Davis Medical Center. Ted was over everything. And so that was when he asked me what ESCs I worked on. I told him the blue one. And well, actually, I
Hey, if
ended up
you're
getting the
biomed,
job
you know
offer.
what those
So that
are.
was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. But then a job came available over at North Bay at Vaca Valley Hospital, real close to my house. And I was there for about 4 years. So it came time. My wife had followed me around a lot. She's actually here from Michigan, where we currently live, and we were in California there. And so the time came to talk about where we had 3 kids at that point, and it was time to look at getting closer to her family. And so I ended up getting a job with a company called Varian Medical, doing this thing called brachytherapy. Mostly when you hear Varian, you think of linear accelerators, but there's this brachytherapy thing, which is
Mm-hmm.
they have these afterloaders, which it's kind of like a rolling cart, that has this turret, and it has a wire on the inside of it with a radioactive source loaded into it. And it's this iridium, 192. And it actually, they put needles inside of tumors, and they advance radioactive sources to the end of the this hollow tube that has a needle, and then they put the radiation inside the cancer, and they treat it from the inside out. So I was completely like, I didn't know anything about this as a BMET, because we had access to none of this. But this thing has radioactive material inside of it. So my job was actually to maintain these equipment, and as a field service engineer, and to actually change the radioactive source in these machines in a territory that is stretched from Western Michigan to Maine, and then from Quebec down to mid Ohio. And so this is important, because what it did was it gave me the experience over the next about 2 years of learning how to work with a set of tools on my truck, how to drive around, how to be self-sufficient, how to walk into a new location that I'd never been before, how to assess equipment, and to basically just go into a new environment and be able to produce results. And so I was flying every month. I was flying internationally every month. I was flying up to Canada and to driving around a lot. I think I put about 40,000 miles on this company vehicle in about 2 years. So I became aware of the existence of work in dental offices. And along the way, ended up actually making a decision to start my own business. Basically found Bright Idea Dental Repair in 2017, doing this type of repair in local dental offices. So really my business from 2017 in my living room to presently here in a 6,000 square foot warehouse with, we have about 7 employees. So just along the way, we've experienced growth, and it's been kind of a wild ride, but the journey has been just really like a lot of steps connected together over a very long time. So it's not like I just
Uh-huh.
came here. So I guess that's kind of my story, is that really through a series of experiences, I just somehow found myself here.
Yeah, but even though you mentioned all these different facets of different sectors, I can see just how they can encapsulate, together on how they can benefit you where you are now. Like all those different experiences. Some of the things you mentioned, I'm like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. Like the field service aspect of going into an unaware situation and being able to, one, quiet the distress of the client, assess the situation, and make shit happen to get them back up and running, is really the bread and butter and mantra of field service, no matter what sector of healthcare you're in, or any sector thereof. that's what makes or breaks a good technician, is really, you know, embodying that whole sense of it. And you know, it's interesting just some of the different pathways that you traversed, and now here you are with 7 employees running your own business.
Yeah.
I think it's a prime opportunity. I have an entrepreneur here right in front of me. What are some examples or advice you would give for somebody wanting to traverse that space?
Gosh, it's one of these things where the longer I'm in it, the more I realize what I don't know. And it's tough, man.
Like, wait, you mean I could have been doing this all this time and making, you know, you find out these new tools or these new programs or different ways of going about doing something that could have made your life easier from the beginning.
It's been really tough. Uh, it's been tough for reasons I wouldn't have expected. I think really the joy, like you said, of going out and saving the day or doing great work today, like we had a great day. Like I went into the University of Michigan, still the, national champion football team that's right here 5 miles away, went into their medical center and one of their dental vacuums had shredded both the belts. And within an hour, we actually resolved their issue. And so we're like supporting, this type of big organization. So like to walk in the door and to actually be relevant to somebody that's at that level of, it hits me sometimes like the things that this business now is connected to are way bigger than me. And they're way bigger than what I can do on my own. And I will tell you, you asked for takeaways. I'll say one of the takeaways is anybody that's catching themselves saying that they own a business or run a business, if you are your only employee, then that means, and your business won't run without you, then really you don't have a business, you have a job. You made yourself a job. And that is a very important thing to determine, like when you're going to go down this road of founding a business, how are you going to get it off your own back? Do you have a plan of getting it off your own back? Because if you're, when you work as a BMET, you have a boss and you might have some clients, but like when you start a business, it's like, okay, now you have your clients are everyone that does business with you, they're all your boss now. And they can all call you if you did something wrong or if something isn't right. They can call you at any time, and you have to go out there and fight to protect your reputation. Like the cool thing about biomedical equipment repair is I think we understand how important our role is to the health and safety and well-being of members of our community. And the fact that our initials, you mentioned calibration stickers earlier, and we were talking, joking about printing and stuff. But, whoever's initials end up on those stickers are, they're telling that person that's hooked up to that equipment that they're going to be okay. And that's something that doesn't strike me lightly. And with dental, I know it's easy to think like in the military, like dental team 1 was always like where everybody came in at. And so dental and lab were kind of those like kind of, those were places where you started out, but you didn't want to stay there. And out here, it's been crazy because it's been almost the opposite. Like dental has been this huge opportunity, and the amount of opportunity that exists in dental offices is really remarkable. And also, too, human health. If you think about it, a lot of our health starts in the mouth. It starts in the everything that's there. So if your mouth is bad, then your health is bad. Your self-image. You can cover up a lot, but you can't cover up your teeth. It's like the picture of the guy with the missing tooth, but you're like, I bet you didn't realize his eyebrow was missing right away or whatever. I use those thoughts to like really reflect on the importance of doing something with our lives, that we get to do something with our lives that's important, that affects other lives. And I'm not saying that there's not value in other industries or other types of things, but I do think we're blessed if we can have a job that we can feel great about and that we can go apply our energy into and know at the end of the day that we made a difference in somebody's life. And I can feel like when I go that there's times where there's things special going on there. And the gratitude, dentistry is super caring. I think for a dentist to be in somebody's face all day long, like they got to be a people person. And there's a lot of care and compassion. So that's definitely something I've learned with regard to the dental job that I do, is that dentistry is a caring profession, and being affiliated with it means that there's a lot of love, and that is a pretty cool thing to be connected to, helping people that are really people.
So let me rope you back to what do you think would be the biggest struggle for somebody wanting to undertake entrepreneurship, at least from your aspect? Yeah. I can fully attest to
Uh-huh.
you're saying it. If it's just you, it's another job. I love doing this, but it is also work. It is hours of my time that I am taking off that I'm doing
Right.
after I get home from my regular day-to-day job
Uh-huh.
that I also have to fit in between my family time that
Right.
I'm not getting paid for hourly by the day or what have you.
Uh-huh.
So there is I've accepted that.
Yeah, there's I think there's something in us that is a little, I don't know if it's different, but it's definitely present. You know, you and I we don't have our channels because we're takers. We have our channels because we're givers. And we've been affected in our careers by good education. And I think now that we are starting to kind of gray up a little bit, we realize that we've been entrusted with a mantle, and it's our job to help our fellow BMETs out. And I do think within that is community. Community is important. That's definitely something that I've learned, and I would absolutely, so to try to lightly answer your question, something that I think is important to realize when you go into business is that when you found a business, you're really entering a fraternity with other people that are also business owners. You're going to start seeing people that are doing things. And what you're going to realize is that your B2B relationships that you're founding are really, those are the thing that your business is going to grow on, and your reputation. Because as you're trying to serve clients, what you're going to realize is that there's a lot of clients that you share with other entrepreneurs. And so being able to like cross refer, that's been really an exciting thing to learn about dentistry.
I don't know if this will be taken as a hot take or not with my fellow biomeds, but one thing that stuck out to me specifically while I was in Nashville is that all of you folks that are specifically in the dental space, you have no problem working
Mhm.
alongside one another, supporting one another, cross-referencing
Oh,
each
yeah.
other, helping lift each other up. Whereas sometimes in the biomed space, and I can say this because I've witnessed it, I've heard about it. One thing that biomed companies do as a disservice to one another is they're overly
Uh-huh.
competitive to the point to where they try to undercut one another, and it ends up hurting the market more. So let's say this company charges set amount for whatever service. They are going to dramatically undercut that bid just to get the work and then do it not as good a job, because obviously how much effort are you going to put into servicing a client when you're getting paid almost half of
Uh,
what the rate
so,
you need it to be to
mhm.
truly support that client. The other part of that I've seen too is we'll also go and speak ill of another company
Mhm.
just to make ourselves look better. And like I said, this isn't 100% of the time, but it's notions that I've seen or heard of multiple times within the field that are not doing our profession as a whole a service. And this is something that I don't see as talked about a lot, like in retrospect of a platform like this, or in a media aspect, or just any
Uh-huh.
of the main publications for biomed. No one really discusses this, but we talk about it in the back rooms where we're having a drink with one another. Like I've it's just something I've noticed that I could appreciate from you guys. Like you guys literally, you walk the walk when it comes to wanting to support each other. I didn't come across one conversation that entire weekend to where I heard anything negative between one company or another. Like you
Absolutely.
guys
Yeah, we're
truly are out there for
um
one another.
I would say the Dental Fix and Uptime Health convention in Nashville was a really good example of the best that our industry can be. I would definitely say that it's a self-selecting group because everyone that's there wanted to be there. So all the curmudgeons that didn't that if they don't value
Yeah.
relationships, they definitely wouldn't have been there. So, but I would say that being invited to that group, because I'm kind of an outsider to the Dental Fix and the Uptime group, but I was invited in because Uptime is opening up to BMETs to kind of try to get them to come in and start helping with some of the dental repairs. That's been an interesting development. But to kind of answer your question, or to kind of comment on your comment, yes, like there's a lot of really great collaboration. There's 136,000 dental offices in the United States. 136,000. Every single one has a compressor, has a vacuum. It has at least one autoclave, maybe two. They all have chairs. They all have x-rays. They all have lights. They all have all this equipment. And so the amount of opportunity that exists in dental offices means that no one business can actually, like, if you, like a little experiment, this might be worth someone's time that's watching this. If you have Yelp, pull out Yelp, type in the word dentist, and then just look at how many dental offices there are around you within like 5 miles of yourself. There's going to probably be, 10, 20, 30, 40. And every single one of these dental offices, you can walk in there with the tools that you use every single day and repairing medical equipment, and walk in the door and be like, hi, my name is Jason. I'm a dental repair technician. I'm a BMET. And how are you taking care of your equipment? Like informational interviewing. And I did that once, and I got hired twice in 5 hours. And I walked out of there at $150 an hour with total of 3 hours billed in about 5 hours. And I'm telling you, it's crazy. Now there are some things to factor in with regard to dental, and that is you definitely don't want to be doing work without having your bases covered with the proper insurances, and also with, the business side of things. Because if you're taking money from a client, that's something where either you need to be taking money in a way where it's not going to come back and bite you in the rear end if anything goes wrong. Like, you got to have a relationship and trust with the people you're working for, so that if something does go wrong, you're not going to end up, on the bad side of some kind of lawsuit or something. And also, but if you are going to do this, then there's definitely a lot of business. It's not like, there's this book that I was referred to a long time ago, and it's called The E-Myth. And the E-Myth is basically like the myth of the entrepreneur. And that, this entrepreneur is this person who's this dynamic. They just go out there and they just conquer, and they do all these things. But really, what business is, each person has, like, I think there's like 3 people. There's like a manager, there's a technician, and then there's like one more thing. And so the technician turned business owner has to realize that when you go out there, you also have to run the business. Because in the beginning, with what we're doing out here, right, because there's so much opportunity, any BMET that's listening to this that's competent can go out here and do what I did. I'm not special. When you literally go and you put in your notice and you quit full-time employment, that's scary, and I've done that. And because when you're doing this on the side, but you're really getting fed somewhere else, it's a different thing. It's a hobby at that point, and it might be a business, but it's still kind of like a hobby, because if that doesn't happen, you're still going to be all right. Your family's going to be all right. But then all of a sudden, your full workday is invested into figuring out how to make this thing that you got yourself into work. Man, that's scary, and I've been there. But I think when you're committed and there's nothing, like, you just work hard. So you just have to be ready for that. I'm recently diagnosed with ADHD, which is kind of something I'd never really envisioned for myself. But I think there's some things in my life that have kind of come to a head where this diagnosis, it makes a lot of sense. I kind of, like, in the role that I'm in, I have to be very flexible and pivoting to like this repair or that repair, or walk into a situation and observe everything and troubleshooting, rapidly understanding what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, where do I go? Do I go north? Do I go south? What do I put on the truck? What do I, like, my brain is always on with regard to the business, and it's always kind of been like that. I feel like now, looking back, because I don't know really even what I thought about some of the transitions in my career, but I feel like I'm always kind of like looking for the next thing, I don't think it comes from a bad place. It just comes from that I'm extremely technically curious. I love learning new things and I love being mentally engaged.
Yeah, but see that feeds very
Uh-huh.
well for somebody within our profession though, because being wide-eyed at the world and being able to see things from a different perspective and multiple perspectives and being comfortable with being uncomfortable and being
Oh
open to
man.
being able to have to pivot on a dime at the last minute notice. Like these are all the things that make a fabulous technician.
Kind of getting back to the ADHD thing means that, like, if things aren't perfect that other people do, it's hard for me to be tolerable around those people because I can walk in the same way that I can walk to a dental office and rapidly identify a problem, hear something wrong, like I'm really efficient in there. But if I walk into my own shop and I find there's a problem and then I bring it up, it it seems to the people that I care about like I'm kind of like cutting at them, even though like my intention is really like, oh, I found something that could be improved. Let's improve it.
We can touch on that from manager to manager. So one thing I had to learn, and it's still a constant
Uh-huh.
learn, is that in the role of management, you never have an instance through your entire career of being a manager. You never stop learning and experiencing. Management requires constantly being able to personally identify with others on how to be tactile and manage expectations. And
Uh-huh.
it's a never ending spiral. I have a mindset when it comes to what a biomed's responsibilities are, what our responsibility to our hospital systems, our clients, our company we work for, just everything entails. All my technicians know like what my expectations are. And there's a level of perfectionism to that, but there is also a
Yeah.
level of no biomed knows everything. There is room to learn, to grow, to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Mistakes prompt, you being better next time. But the main thing I had to teach
Uh-huh.
myself is that I cannot duplicate
Yeah.
me. There will never be another Chase Torres. And that is not an egotistic thing. That is the way I would approach a problem, see a problem, solve a problem. No one will go about it the exact same way I did. So the way to tackle that as a manager is to coach, mentor, set expectations for your technicians and guide them towards the answer for them to handle it how they can. And hopefully they reach the water on their own and provide as close to perfection outcome as possible. If not, then it is a learning opportunity to tackle next
And
time. And it's still hard for me to do
agree with
sometimes.
you.
But
I
that's I
definitely agree with you that one of the unique challenges is that I've taken on the role of trainer as well as manager, and then also lead technician. There's an internal drive to like make sure everything's okay and to take care of everybody, which means that I put myself out there to work really hard. So I'm kind of I'm a working, like my management style is a working management style. So to actually slow down and stay in the shop when every single one of our clients is outside of our building, so this is like in a field service role, we serve within
yeah.
a whole hour of our location. And this type of a role of a business means that everything happening that is drawing a dollar is happening out there, with the exception of refurbishing equipment that gets sold out there. And so when I founded the business, what I like, because no I have not successfully hired any dental technicians from other companies that know what's going on. And I hired a BMAT once who ended up leaving to take a job at a regular hospital. So all of my technicians, because I hear what you're saying with
Mhm.
regard to like managing and having expectations and clearly out defining roles. I'm really terrible at that because I'm kind of more of a I know it when I see it kind of guy, which isn't as constructive when I'm in a
Yeah.
learning environment where everyone really is doing their best. Like, okay, we start today here, then when we leave, I want to leave here. If there's always that little progression that I'm trying to get out of people that are working for me, then at some point it feels like, because if I have 10 minutes, I'm trying to like focus on the thing that's going to make them better, not make them feel better about themselves to some
Right.
extent, right? Like, all right, we're all employed, we're all working, we're in a business that's paying us all, but there is a piece of it that, again, I need to get better at. And I'm just telling you, the struggle of management is real. And the way I've compensated for that, or tried to, is by surrounding myself with people that are better than I am. Um, I would definitely say, though, that trying to develop talent has been challenging, and learning how to not view everybody else's failures as my own failure, to be able to teach them. Because that's one thing about being the boss, right? Is that everybody's failure is really, like, whatever failure that is your failure. And so I feel really caught in the middle of people that I care about, that I work with. And then I feel also caught in the middle of customers that I care about, what our reputation is. And I genuinely do care about the work that we do. So here I am trying to like get the best out of these people to give the best to these people.
That is a very tricky
Oh, it's
cycle
so
and
hard.
requires so
Yeah.
much balance and poise and patience. And because you got to have all of them at a constant influx. And when you're putting in energy, like you said, into one
Yeah.
thing, it's disproportionate energy going to the other thing.
Yeah.
You're not able to hit all the key aspects. And no matter how hard you try,
Right.
like you'll never be able to get everything humming at 100%.
My team is really, they come and they do their best every day. And lately, I think one of the things that really led me to explore this ADHD a little bit more is, number one, like I find myself like, I really am hard on myself. And I think my self-talk, like when you're out there driving and you're trying to get from here to there and there and there, and then you're disappointing people because they're close to you. I think there has been some real stuff that I've been going through with this, and I really have been seeking out help because,
Yeah.
I'm at a place where I want to get I want to get myself to a place where my team can hear me, where we can, as a team, help our customers, where we can keep moving forward, because this has just grown beyond, like, if you look at, like, we have perfect 5-star Google reviews, but then you go and you look at them, a lot of them say like, well, Jason did this, well, Jason did that, well, Jason did that. And a lot of them, I'm asking for the review. And so, because that's what you have to do if you want reviews, you got to ask for them. So, but if you don't have a name brand that everyone recognizes, like, that's just part of the business. You have to ask for those things. But I want this business to be so much more than what I am, because really it's like, I'm happy to be the founder. I'm happy to be the president of this business. I'm happy to be, all the things, like the bleeding edge of like, dude, send me to the brightest fire. Like, something funny happened like about a month ago. We got this call that this dental office, they called and they said there was an explosion on the side of our building. And they said, we need somebody, like half the things don't work. And I was like, all right, I'm gone, So like I'm driving towards the explosion. It ended up being a transformer blew up on the side of a building. But it literally, they were like, the building exploded and half the stuff doesn't work and we need help. And I'm just like, let's go. And so that is kind of I think I'm always chasing the bright, flashy thing. And so I think the discipline to really follow through, the discipline of management. You mentioned earlier, right? Setting clear expectations. Dude, I suck at that. Part of the challenge of this business is really that every day has a new set of factors and facts, and there's always a new environment. And if you walk into a scenario and you say, oh,
Right.
okay, well, this error is on this machine, therefore it's always this. Well, gosh, it could be any number of things. So, like, you have to, like, you can't just tell a trainee, hey, it's always going to be this way. But if you're trying to guide them step by step in front of something, and then next week you come and you're trying to guide them step by step in something else, and then they're like, hey, you know what, you really contradicted yourself. Because, and the thing is, they don't tell you when you're contradicting, they don't tell you in the moment so you can explain yourself. What happens is
Yeah.
that you kind of are hurting their feelings, right? Which feelings are real. And then it's like you find out later, hey, when you did that, like you really confused me, or you know what, I feel like I just can't do anything right around here. Yeah.
So one thing I think with you being in the dental space as well, it is very much, it can be equated to like if a CT MRI goes down in the
Mhm.
retrospective, the expectations of these dental clinics, because if their stuff isn't working, they literally
Mhm.
cannot keep the doors open to make
Oh
money.
yeah.
And a lot of these clinics, they
Oh yeah.
have to be operational, just the one chair. So there is a heightened level of expectation and need within that space. On top of that, there is also the aspect of getting into the weeds, and you don't really have the space nor the buffer to
Mm.
be able to let them fail on their own, because if they're not able to get things up within a certain allotted time or within a set expectation of the client.
My mentality is that I've spent 7 years, almost 8 years, learning how to do this business. So if I hire somebody that's been with me for like less than 2 years and they're confronted with an issue, I would rather them come to me so that I can like guide them through it based on my experience and like accelerate
Mhm.
their learning, because efficiency is important when we have as many clients to take care of as we do. And those are things where that efficiency, I need to focus a little bit less on that and more on the personnel. But
If I could make a suggestion, because I do the same thing,
uh-huh,
I'm very much in the field along with my technicians a lot. Just like you said, you have years of experience that you can hopefully through osmosis,
uh-huh,
being in the general area, they can absorb some of that wisdom. But I have found that, and of course, this isn't every technician, but depending on certain personalities and who you work alongside, et cetera, some people use that as a crutch. And you have to be able to allow them to find the answer on their own and hope they find the answer on their own and be a resource that they can go to after making those
yeah,
explorations of their own. And it's hard.
I
It's
agree
it's
with
super
you.
difficult.
Yeah.
I struggle with it myself. But I also don't it's that fine balance, because there are situations where for a fact, like, you want to step in and,
Uh-huh,
coach, mentor, impart that wisdom. But I would maybe try to see if there are situations to where you can maybe step back a little bit and see if they can tackle it on their own, because that also helps with the troubleshooting
I
aspect and also the confidence aspect of the technician. I have a specific tech that she is still less than a year in the field, but she's one of my more reliable technicians because I've allowed her to grow, and then I've made myself a resource sometimes right there with her doing some repairs. And then
uh-huh,
also she knows she can text me, call me, send me pictures. I've kind
uh,
of tried to do a little bit of both with all my technicians. So that way they get a little bit of each, but it's also, they're not using me as
uh,
their crutch when they could have used Google, for instance. I'll get a call or a text from a technician. Hey, what do I do if so-and-so? I'm like, I look it up
uh-huh.
on Google. I'm like, well, I just checked on Google and it says to do this. And then they think like I couldn't
Yeah,
follow
and
those
that's
steps. Did you look
where
in the
I think
manual? That kind of stuff.
being able to find answers on their own, and I think is something that I do try to guide them towards. I don't want to be like everything to come through me. The amount of support that exists, it's like I tell my guys, like, look, if you're struggling for more than 15 minutes, like 30 minutes at the max, like stop and figure out who to call. Like call for help. I would
Yeah.
say I definitely think that there's a place for like learning things and struggling, but I think some of that learn and struggle has to happen on your own time. You can't really do that. Yeah.
They'll go hours of struggling when they should have just stopped, gone a different direction, or I don't know what this,
Yeah.
it's not every technician, but there's a sense of like, if I
Uh,
call tech support, then I'm failing. I have no problem. I've called tech support multiple times with my technicians right there, put them on speakerphone. There's nothing wrong with calling tech support. these are people that are supposed to be able to assist you with a device they manufacture. So if you've gone through all the different increments of what you know to check and you're still lost, call the people that should be able to at least point you in the right direction.
My perspective is I feel like it's kind of almost poisoned a little bit. I have probably more anxiety than I should have, like reasonably, because honestly, like we're a successful business, like the phone's ringing, people are calling us, but there's a lot that we're just kind of like we're depending on that's just going to happen. I have great employees, we have great clients, but the anxiety over overhead and earnings is a BMIT. I never really worried. Like in the hospital, dude, the money's there. And I think, granted, I'm not saying there's not layoffs and stuff, but I think when you're able to work on equipment and you're further away from the financial concerns, like you have a problem with their paycheck or whatever, like you call HR or you call finance or you do these sorts of things. When you own a business and there's a problem with a paycheck, guess what? Like instead of fixing equipment, now you're trying to sort out your employees' pay. And I will tell you, like outside, like I would love if you ever came up here to tour, like I'd show you the warehouse, the 6,000 square feet, all the equipment. We have a dumpster outside, that we pay for, 4 work trucks. The overhead to produce results is so high because ultimately being able to like do our
Yeah.
line of work requires some tools. Now, one thing that I love about dental that I will tell you, it's kind of like a little makes us maybe a little bit of a black sheep is that I have electrical safety analyzer, but I don't use it in dental because that's not like you use test equipment differently in dental. Like in dental, it's all go or no go. Whereas like is BMETs, we're really validating like test points and things. I use my meter
Test
for
points.
troubleshooting and
Yeah.
whatnot and some calibration, but I don't do any.
Well, that's because the reporting, documentation, and
Absolutely.
accreditation
Yeah. It's like
aspect
night
of
and day.
dental compared to biomed is different. There's the
Well,
regulatory
and that's one
compliance
thing about
aspect isn't
dental,
a
like with
factor
the
for right now.
136,000 dental office thing, it's like such a big animal that how could it be really tested and regulated to the extent of everything being covered?
Well, I know from the medical record aspect, there was the discussion that, dental and medical records being combined under one said system. That should be, I believe that's coming to
You know what? Maybe, but
everywhere
I've got
within the
offices that
next
aren't
year or
even
two.
fully digital
From
yet. There's still some paper
and
charts and so
yeah,
I don't know because
yep,
one thing you realize when you're doing dental equipment repair is that you realize that not every dental office is ran the same way. And, you know, I, I don't know, man, this might be a little controversial, but I feel like I'm here in Southeast Michigan and I'm wondering if there's not like some different like residual like racism that's going on in some of the areas we serve. And I can explain that a little bit because there'll be offices that cater to different demographics or different areas that it's clear that nobody is inspecting these places. And I think it's either my Instagram or whatever, but like there's some places, man, that are just downright scary. But the thing is that the people that are going there are like thankful for the care they're getting. And the doctor that's doing the care is like, I don't know. I
yeah.
guess they're doing the best they can too. But I just think it varies so much based on where people live, where people are, who is a regulatory authority. Like, Bruno, it's crazy because really, like, all the members of the community that depend on what we do, it's important. But I don't know what the answers are with regard to like if there's some more regulation is going to help. Because really, like, what's happening in the dental industry is the doctors are being confronted with like after COVID, it's like the assistants and hygienist source like really kind of dried up because I think like when the offices shut down, I think some people like reoriented away from these careers. What's happening is it's been really hard to replenish these, which means the salaries have gone way up. And there was actually I saw a comparison locally where there was
Yeah.
like this doctor position was actually paying less than a hygienist position. And so, there's a lot going on, because if you think about all the things that I've kind of been rambling on about business ownership, a dentist that has a siloed practice, right? If you have a doctor that owns a building, that owns equipment, that employs people, I would say on one hand, that makes me able to like kind of connect with them better from a sales perspective because I can kind of understand like what they can, but sales has been a pretty unexpected thing to have to deal with as a business owner. And but the complexity of what like we're talking about here, as much as I don't want my identity to be in this business, I've actually had to go through a little bit of a shift on the inside because I used to be like kind of like really identified so closely with being a biomed or repair technician. And now lately I've kind of been moving more kind
Mhm.
of towards art because like in photography, I've been doing X-ray film photography. That's been pretty cool. Shooting large format X-ray pictures and stuff like whatnot. But the thing about art versus repair is like art, I can just appreciate it and leave it the heck alone. Being a repair guy, you always have to fix stuff. And so the demands on being an artist and a creator versus a
Yeah.
repair guy and a fixer, there's even complexity in that I can just, really.
I think that's part of why the idea
Uh-huh.
of what Bearded Biomed is resonated with me when I had it, just because it allows me a creative outlet as opposed to just
Yeah,
always
I
being
can
the
see
guy
that.
that's expected to fix other people's problems. At the very least, I can speak on those problems with my own opinions, but still have a creative outlet to do so. So I would say, like, going into this year, like, one,
Oh,
maybe take a little easy on yourself, but maybe lean more into that creative outlet. One of my goals, which I've never been one to do resolutions, I feel like people break resolutions all the time. I have clear, defined set goals and a pathway of how I'm going to achieve those every year that I do.
okay.
Literally,
Wow.
New
Nice.
Year's Eve, I sit down and write this list. I've always done it for years. And of course, I gave myself another undertaking. But one of the
Mm.
goals I gave myself was to be less stressed this
Ah,
year. 'Cause last year I was very stressed. And whether that is leaning more on my techs without stepping back more and allowing them to grow and do what they need to do. And even with the show, like I hit clear goals I wanted to, but I also was super stressed out about what I didn't
uh,
accomplish, whereas I didn't really get to appreciate what I did. And I would say even for your business, man, like where it's at right now and compared to when you first started it, like
yeah.
sometimes you just got to stop and smell the roses a little bit. Obviously, you can't just sit there and do it the whole time because then you're not going to be moving like you
Uh-huh.
need to make the business grow and be successful like it has. But from the aspect of always having to be on, always having to fix something, always having to be a resolution to a problem, it's
And
not a
I
bad thing
do,
to
and I
take a
think some
moment
of
and
these
just breathe.
things, as far as like learning how to work through my team, that's something. There's a good book that I read from this. It's called The Six Working Geniuses. It's an allegory. It's about kind of the different stages of work, and the real short piece of it is that there's this like it's an acronym, a widget, and the six phases of work are wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. And so the way that it is like you wonder about something and then you like invent like an idea about something and then you have like discernment is kind of like is that a good or bad idea? And then galvanizing is kind of that cheerleading or coaching to like get that motion to an enablement where you're like allowing like empowering people to do the work, like not enablement badly, but kind of enablement like kind of that. And then tenacity of just like finishing the job, like getting
Right.
it done, the gritty. And so for me, like the thesis of this is like every person has two things that give you energy and every person has two things that take away your energy. And for me, it's like, invention and discernment are like my things. So I can come up with a lot of good ideas and I'm pretty good at figuring out which ones are good. But the things that I'm really weak at are the whole galvanizing and enablement, which is basically being a coach. So I'm not great at that. That takes my energy away. And it's not like it's been useful for me to understand myself. So I think trying to like understand who I am with relationship to the business and then also recognizing that when confronted with a problem, I'm probably going to go ahead and default towards the things that I am getting energy from, which is, invention and
Mhm.
discernment. So if somebody comes to me with a problem, instead of just like being tenacious and helping them do it, or, cheerleading them through the problem, I'm going to probably try to come up with a bunch of ideas that are going to I'm going to hijack the process to try to like solve it. And so, like you said, like giving my technicians and my
Mm.
team room to like make decisions and figuring out how to speak into that and get like to feel heard. But it's really something that, like you said, like personally, I want to be more trustworthy with my team. I want to have us as a team provide better service to our clients. And then, like you said, figuring out like how to not be so hard on myself or so frantic for perfection or
But you are ahead of the curve in that respect because you've at least identified and
yeah.
recognized it.
But business ownership, man, is not for the it's not for the faint of heart. And I would say that one of the cool things that has come out of the business ownership is definitely the dental equipment repair YouTube channel. So, I mean, you've definitely got like the biomed side covered, and I know there's some other good ones out there. But if anybody's interested in like seeing like, hey, what does this work look like? Because
I follow
because
your
I'm
channel.
more
You
than
post some really insightful things.
I think there's a lot of space out here for us. And I think too, one thing that's kind of frightening if you really think about it is that we all go to the dentist, and if there's not a qualified person working on the stuff that's actually going into your mouth, maybe not as glamorous as some of the larger types of modalities, but there's a lot of technology moving in dental, and it's been a really cool industry to be part of.
Well, there's a quote I heard recently. A person that's truly blind isn't one that can't see with their eyes. It's one that refuses to see inside.
There's a wondering that's inside as far as like now that I'm here with this business and having this personality that's infinitely curious and wanting to kind of go towards the novel instead of maybe being as disciplined with the things that need. There's definitely that personal growth that needs to happen. And one of the things that I'm the most thankful for, I have an awesome family. I have a really great community professionally. And I think taking time to build relationships like we're doing now, that's so important because when everything else is kind of taken away, and having like lost that job at Genentech or moving geographically, when I go back to California, in the Bay Area, there's people I see every time because those people they're going to be our friends forever. And so taking that time to really build those relationships, I think is something that I can encourage any, like what was really like one thing was super cool was here about 3 weeks ago now. I actually am a part of a biomed community here called the Michigan Society for Clinical Engineering. And I actually hosted about 30 BMETs here in my shop. And I did about a 1 hour presentation on dental equipment repair. And so I was actually I built a dental office in my shop. And so I showed them like how the vacuums worked and the compressors and the chairs and for like an hour, basically sharing that knowledge. And it was really cool to again have those relationships and to pour into them and to just be willing to be available for that, because a lot of it came from like hey, we don't have a place to meet, and then I was like, all right, and my ADHD was like, yeah, it sounds like great, let me give myself a deadline that is gonna make me have to do something, and that is kind of part of this interesting journey that I'm on now, that I'm recognizing that this personality that I have and who I am and how that connects to all these things. It's kind of like just this puzzle.
Hey, we done some really good deep convo topics, and I'm pretty sure somebody would be able to relate at least one, if not all of them. So, Jason, as always, man, it's a pleasure. I'm sure I'll see you at some point in time, either at a conference or in passing, or might take you up on that Michigan visit at some point. And yeah, as always, we appreciate y'all watching, listening. If you would be so kind as to like, subscribe, follow, share, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Uptime Services, Capital I, and of course, CBET. We appreciate all you do for the industry and your support to uplift and move us into a higher echelon. So thank you and have a great day. May the beard be with you.